This is Michael Popok, Legal AF. Interesting turn of events today in the Jan 6 prosecution of Chris Alberts in two ways. One, Chris Alberts took the stand to try to talk his way out of hundreds of hours of video showing him fighting and attacking police time and time again as one of the first people to help break the barrier, break the barricade, break the line, and allow everyone to pour in, all the Jan 6 insurrectionists to pour into the Capitol. That Chris Alberts working hand in glove with Guy Reffitt now spending 7.5 years in prison for his actions. This is now Chris Alberts' turn. But we had two amazing turn of events. One, Chris Alberts took the stand, tried to talk his way out of it in front of the jury. The handful of defendants who have done that in the past have all been convicted, just so you know how that's turned out. And then you had the second to last witness that was called was David Sumrall. David Sumrall is a outdoor deck carpenter by day, but by night, he's a Jan 6 defendant, apologist, podcaster, fundraiser for all things Jan 6 defendant. He goes on and makes films that have been released on super right-wing, alt-right media about why the 5 Jan 6 attackers who died on Jan 6th were killed by the police, which we know is untrue. He never acknowledges, David Sumrall, the death of 5 law enforcement because of Jan 6th. He never talks about those things. He goes on Fox News, he goes on Newsmax, he goes on websites you've never heard of, and he runs an entity called Stop Hate. Wears a red cap, looks like a MAGA cap, but that says Stop Hate. So this deck builder, podcaster gets called by the defense because he happened to be, well, he didn't happen to be, he chose to be at the Capitol on Jan 6th, filming the peaceful protests, which of course we know became a bloody, lusty, violent, insurrectionist attack on the cradle of our democracy. And so they wanted him to come in and testify, Mr. Sumrall, about what he saw from the defense perspective. What they wanted to argue to the jury was a lack of police presence, which therefore gave permission and license, I guess, to the defendants to try to set the Capitol on fire and kill Nancy Pelosi and Mike Pence and other members of Congress who they didn't agree with in the name of the First Amendment. I guess that was the theory. Went sort of awry when the assistant U.S. attorney, Jordan King, decided to try to show the jury how biased Mr. Sumrall is and in favor of the Jan 6 defendants and his own views, for instance, that the Jan 6 was a false flag event that was used by the Democrats and law enforcement to capture Trump supporters. And so in order to do that, they asked him, well, you were there filming, right, sir? And he said, yes, in cross-examination. And he said, well, and the U.S. attorney said, why don't you identify for the jury all the other people that you knew and you could identify, that you saw, that haven't yet been charged in Jan 6th? And he just sat back. In other words, tell us who the other people are who are insurrectionists that you observed. Look the jury in the eye and under oath, tell them that. And Sumrall fought back and said, I'm not going to dox these people. And immediately the defense lawyers saw that their efforts to bring David Sumrall in as some sort of Jan 6 expert, conspiracy theory expert, and run him by the jury was backfiring quickly. And they called for a sidebar with the judge and objected to the cross-examination topic, forcing Mr. Sumrall to identify to the jury all the other people that he saw there that haven't yet been charged. An interesting tactic by the U.S. attorney.
And now let's take a quick break to talk about our next partner, Lomi. Now, I've never been able to compost before. It was always too complicated, too much work, and frankly, I don't think I even knew exactly if I was doing it right. Then I got a Lomi. Lomi allows me to turn my food scraps into dirt with just the push of a button. Lomi is a countertop electric composter that turns scraps to dirt in under 4 hours. There's no smell when it runs, and it's really quiet. Thanks to Lomi, I have way less garbage each week. My family, we're down from 3 bags per week to just 1. And here's something pretty cool. My wife, she recently started gardening, and we've been able to use the dirt that Lomi produces to help fill the garden. And since I got my Lomi, I throw out way less garbage. That means it's not going to landfills and producing methane. Instead, I turn my waste into nutrient-rich dirt that I can feed to my plants. I feel so great knowing that I'm composting and creating soil instead of waste. And I have basically a limitless supply of dirt for my garden. The other week I had my in-laws over for dinner, and the food cleanup process was such a breeze. Plus, they all think I'm super eco-conscious now. If you want to start making a positive environmental impact or just make cleanup after dinner that much easier, Lomi is perfect for you. Head to lomi.com/legalaf and use the promo code legalaf to get $50 off your Lomi. That's $50 off when you head to lomi.com/legalaf and use promo code legalaf at checkout. Food waste is gross. Let Lomi save you a cold trip out to the garbage can. And now, back to the video.
The judge cleared the room, and Judge Cooper basically told the U.S. attorney, I had no idea you were going to go down that line of reasoning, that line of questioning. Warn me before you do it so we can have a discussion about it. That's sort of a prudent thing for a judge to say. And then the judge made a decision. He said, I'm not going to force Sumrall to answer your question. And the lawyer for, of course, Chris Alberts said, yeah, they're trying to make him into a cheese-eating rat. They're trying to make him into a paid person on the stand who's going to snitch on the stand. And the judge was like, well, I don't know about all that. He doesn't have to answer those questions, but it is a legitimate way and line of questioning to determine bias. And the jury should know about this bias. And he can decline to answer, but of course the prosecutors can say, see, when we asked him who else he observed there, he won't answer because he's so pro Jan 6, he's so down the rabbit hole of protecting everybody at Jan 6, which he claims was some sort of First Amendment protest, without acknowledging the violence, the mob, the fomenting, the attacks, the breaking of property, and the attacks on the law enforcement. And he won't even acknowledge that. And therefore, the prosecutors are going to say in their closing, you can just ignore Mr. Sumrall because he's just drank too much Kool-Aid and believes all of his, whatever, he's getting high in his own supply, and therefore take him off the board. The thing you should focus on, they'll say in their closing, which starts later this week, is the testimony of Mr. Alberts himself, who basically conceded that he was at the grounds of the Capitol, refused to disperse, attacked the police time and time again. He gave you some ridiculous theory as to why he was at the Capitol, that he was there to protect others, that he was incensed that law enforcement was trying to protect the Capitol from their attack, and therefore he was trying to be some sort of superhero to protect the protesters who were being subjected to tear gas and other non-lethal munitions. Jury's never going to buy this. And just as earlier today, there's already been convictions by another jury of a mother and son team who came to the Capitol with Ziploc ties to tie up members of the House and Senate that they found. They're going to convict Chris Alberts too because he's guilty. The law enforcement and the U.S. attorney put on hundreds of hours of video of Chris Alberts showing exactly what he did and how he picked up a wooden pallet and used it as a shield as he chased up the stairs of the Western Staircase to allow those behind him to penetrate and breach our Capitol. And this gambit that the defense used of trying to bring Dave Sumrall in to try to argue some sort of false flag and everything was fine. It was a walk in the park. And, you've seen the videos and the Tucker files. Here's my video of what I was filming that day. And that's going to backfire. So let's wrap up here. Final day of trial of Chris Alberts, who testified and admitted that he had 25 rounds of ammunition, including hollow point guns, that was part of a concealed weapon. When he worked with Guy Reffitt, he was also armed that day. And the attempt to bring in David Sumrall as the last closing witness for the defense horribly backfired, as the U.S. Attorney's Office, now having done, 20 or 30 of these trials, knows how to fight back and properly cross-examine a witness who's mad as a hatter like David Sumrall, who's so far right, he's even further to the right than somebody like Bannon. So that's what happened today. We follow these types of events at the intersection of law and politics, those politically charged litigation. I do it almost every day in a hot take, just like this one, on the MeidasTouch network. On Wednesdays and Saturdays, we curate the most important, consequential stories and reporting at the intersection of law and politics on a podcast called Legal AF, also on the MeidasTouch network. You can get it audio on every place you get podcasts from. You can see the video version of it, the live version of it on YouTube, also on the MeidasTouch network. And if you like these kind of hot takes from me, you can follow me on all things social media at MS Popok. This is Michael Popok, Legal AF reporting.
MeidasTouch is unapologetically pro-democracy. And look, we know you are too. So please make sure you check out our best-selling shirt and our best-selling gear, the unapologetically pro-democracy gear. And hey, while you're at it, make sure you check out my favorite shirt and one of our most famous designs. It wasn't rigged, you're just a loser. At store.meidastouch.com. That's store.meidastouch.com.